The galaxy was loud with war everywhere. Fleets clashed and planets burned. The Galactic Alliance, made of proud alien races, was losing ground. They were strong, they were fierce, but their ships were breaking apart. The enemy, a ruthless alien empire, pushed forward with no mercy in the middle of all this. Humans were still new to the Alliance. They had joined only a few years ago. Most aliens laughed at them. Humans were seen as weak, soft, and far too quiet. Not warriors, not leaders, not important. On the main flagship of the Alliance stood Admiral Kale, a tall alien with silver skin and sharp glowing eyes. His voice thundered across the hall as he spoke to his officers. "We need something new, something fast, or the war is lost." The officers argued loudly, each offering ideas that sounded more desperate than the last. Then, at the back of the hall, a human engineer stood silently. He had been assigned to the ship for repairs, nothing more. He was not a soldier, not a commander, he was simply a builder. He never raised his voice, he never argued. He never tried to be noticed. The Admiral's anger grew. "What are you all giving me?" "Empty words," he roared. He slammed his clawed hand on the table. "We need someone who will act, not talk." The room went silent. And then, the human stepped forward. Every alien eye turned to him. He was not tall, not strong, not loud. His uniform was plain, his face calm when he spoke. His voice was soft, almost too soft to hear. "I can build," he said. The hall burst into laughter. A warrior from the Carrick race shouted, "Build? You think toys will save us?" Another officer mocked, "Go back to your tools, human. This is a war, not a workshop." Even the Admiral narrowed his glowing eyes. He looked at the human for a long moment. "You build? What can you build that we do not already have?" The human did not answer. He simply held the Admiral's gaze with quiet confidence. And that silence was strange. It was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of certainty. The Admiral leaned closer. He spoke in a low voice, "If you fail, we all die." The human only nodded. "I will not fail," he replied softly. That night, the shipyard was alive with sound. But not the sound of arguments, not the sound of loud voices. It was the sound of metal being cut, machines being forged, sparks flying. The human worked with his hands, with his mind, with his heart. He moved quickly, quietly, but with purpose. Aliens passed by and shook their heads. "He is wasting time," they whispered. Humans do not understand war. But still, the human kept working. His eyes never left the designs he was shaping. His hands never stopped building. The Admiral watched from a distance. He did not understand, but he felt something. A strange weight in the air. The human was not loud, not proud. But there was power in his silence. A power that made even the Admiral hesitate. Hours turned to days, the fleet prepared for battle. Fear spread like fire among the soldiers, but in the shipyard there was only calm. The human kept building as if the chaos of war did not exist. And when the Admiral came again, he found the human standing before something new, not finished, not yet, but already different, already impossible. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "What are you building, human?" he asked. The human looked up slowly. He did not smile, he did not boast, he simply whispered, "Hope." The fleet floated in silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of the dying. Dozens of warships drifted across the void. Scarred and shattered, engines flickered, weapons failed. Hulls cracked under pressure. The proud Galactic Alliance now looked like a graveyard in space. The Admiral walked the main deck. His silver skin seemed dull in the dim light. He had commanded battles for years, but never had he seen such despair. Every report was the same: losses, damages, failures. The enemy empire was advancing faster than ever, and nothing seemed strong enough to stop them. The officers argued again. "We must retreat," shouted one. "No. We must launch a final attack," yelled another. Their voices filled the chamber with fear and anger. But no voice brought hope. No voice offered a real solution. And then, once again, the human was there. He stood at the edge of the room, unnoticed at first, quiet, calm. Watching everything, he did not shout, he did not interrupt. He simply waited until the noise faded. When the Admiral finally noticed him, he raised a brow. "You, human, why are you here?" The human's answer was soft. "I came to see what is broken." The officers laughed bitterly. "Everything is broken," one sneered. "Our weapons, our ships, our courage." Another slammed his fist on the table. "You think you can fix this war with tools?" The human said nothing. Instead, he picked up a piece of shattered metal lying on the table. It was from a destroyed battleship. Sharp and bent, he turned it slowly in his hand, studying it with silent focus. Then he placed it back down and whispered, "Not everything is broken." "Not yet." The Admiral studied him carefully. The human's words were strange. Not loud, not confident like the warriors. But there was something in them. A quiet weight that made the Admiral pause. Later, the human walked through the hangars. Everywhere he looked, machines lay ruined. Engines split open, weapons fried, armor shattered. The alien engineers shook their heads. They worked hard. But they were only rebuilding what already failed. They could not imagine something new. They could not think like a builder. The human knelt beside a broken generator. His hands touched the burned wires and cracked surface. He could see the weakness in the design, a flaw that the enemy had exploited again and again. Where others saw wreckage, he saw patterns. Where others gave up, he saw a path. He began sketching quietly on his datapad. Strange lines, strange shapes. The designs looked nothing like Alliance machines. Aliens walked past and laughed. "Look at him," they said, "drawing toys while the galaxy burns." But the human did not respond. His eyes stayed fixed on his work. The Admiral came again that night. He found the human surrounded by broken parts. Metal scraps, wires, shattered engines. The human's hands moved fast, building small models, testing pieces. Every failure he threw aside. Every success he quietly improved. The Admiral watched in silence. This was not a soldier, not a warrior. But there was something dangerous about his focus. Something unshakable. Finally, the Admiral spoke. "What are you doing, human?" The human did not look up. He placed two broken parts together, and they clicked as if they were always meant to. "I am building what we need, not what we had," he whispered. The Admiral frowned. "What we need? You think you know what we need better than my officers, better than my war council?" The human looked up at last. His eyes were steady, calm. "You need something impossible, Admiral," he said. "And I can build impossible." The words hung in the air like fire. The Admiral said nothing for the first time in days. He felt something he had not felt before. Not anger, not despair, but a small spark. A dangerous spark called hope, but hope was fragile. The enemy fleet was already on the move. Scouts reported they would arrive in 3 days. The Alliance ships were not ready. The officers panicked again. "There is no time," they cried. "We are doomed," they shouted. The hall echoed with fear. And then the human stepped forward once more. His voice was soft, almost drowned by the noise. But the Admiral heard it clearly. "Give me 3 days," the human said. The hall went silent. Even the loudest officers stared at him. 3 days. Against an empire of war. Against fleets of destruction. It sounded insane. It sounded impossible. The Admiral's sharp eyes narrowed. 3 days, he repeated slowly. "If you fail, every life here will be lost." The human nodded calmly. "I know," he whispered. And then he turned and walked back to the wreckage, back to the broken fleet, back to his tools. The Admiral watched him go, and for reasons he could not explain, he found himself whispering, "Build, human, build." The hangars of the fleet became a storm of sound. Hammers rang, sparks flew, engines roared. But at the center of it all was silence. The silence of one human who worked without rest. He did not speak, he did not argue, he only built. Aliens came to watch him, at first out of curiosity, then out of disbelief. The human gathered broken parts from ruined ships. He shaped them, bent them, cut them, joined them in strange ways. His hands moved quickly, his mind moved faster. The designs he followed were not from any Alliance record. They came from somewhere else. Somewhere only he could see. An officer sneered. "He is wasting resources," he said. Another laughed. "Scraps and toys will not win this war." But still, the human worked. Every insult rolled off him like rain. Every doubt only made him faster. The Admiral came often. He stood at a distance, watching the human bend metal like it was clay. The Admiral could not understand. The shapes looked wrong. The angles impossible. The design alien. "Are you repairing or inventing?" The Admiral finally asked one night. The human did not look up. "I am building," he whispered, bit by bit. The shape of something vast began to form. It rose from the floor like a skeleton of a giant beast. Strange curves twisted together with sharp lines. Glowing cores hummed softly. The structure looked alive. The officers stared with unease. "What is it?" They muttered. "Is it even a ship? Is it even real?" The human ignored their questions. He kept working, never loud, never proud. Only silent, steady, certain. When a machine broke, he built another. When energy failed, he rerouted it in ways the aliens had never imagined. His mind seemed to dance where others stumbled. He built not from tradition, but from need. Not from blueprints, but from vision. The Admiral grew restless. Time was running out. The enemy was only a day away. He approached the human again, his voice sharp. "You must tell me, what is this machine?" The human finally looked at him. His eyes were calm, unshaken by the weight of the galaxy. "It is a shield," he said softly. "But not a shield you have ever seen. A shield." The officers repeated. They scoffed, they laughed. "We already have shields, and they failed us." The human shook his head slowly. "Your shields block," he whispered. "Mine will bend." The words confused them. What did it mean to bend instead of block? But the Admiral felt the quiet certainty again. That same weight in the human's voice. A weight that made him listen. The machine grew larger by the hour. Its frame glowed with strange light. Its panels shimmered like liquid. Its core pulsed with energy that felt alive. Aliens who came to mock grew silent. They could not understand what they saw. But they could not look away. Soon, whispers spread across the fleet. "The human is building something impossible. Maybe he is mad. Maybe he is a genius." Fear and hope mixed together like fire and smoke. When the Admiral finally entered the hangar on the last night, he stopped in his tracks. Before him stood the machine, tall, wide, gleaming, unfinished yet terrifying. It looked like a wall of light and shadow, like a barrier that was not solid but alive. It seemed to breathe. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "What have you done, human?" he whispered. The human stood at the base of the machine. Covered in dust, sweat, and sparks, he looked small, fragile, but unshaken. "I have given you a chance," he said quietly. The Admiral stepped closer. He touched the strange surface of the machine. It rippled under his hand like water. He pulled back sharply. "This is not metal," he muttered. "It is not energy, it is not—" His words trailed off. He did not understand. But he could feel its power. The officers gathered behind him. Fear filled their voices. "It will fail," they hissed. "It will kill us. No machine built in 3 days can save us." But the Admiral did not answer. His eyes were locked on the human, for the first time. The Admiral did not see weakness. He saw fire hidden behind quiet eyes. The human turned away from them. His hands moved to the final controls. "Tomorrow," he whispered. "Tomorrow we test it." The Admiral's jaw tightened. The enemy fleet was already on its way. There was no more time. Either this machine would save them, or it would destroy them all that night. As the fleet prepared for its last battle, the hangar glowed with the impossible light of the human's creation. The warriors tried to sleep but could not. Their hearts beat with fear. Their eyes returned again and again to the strange machine. Some prayed, some cursed, but all of them whispered the same word: impossible. And in the middle of it all, the human sat silently, not resting, not speaking, only waiting. For the dawn when the machine would be tested in fire. The enemy came with the rising sun. Their ships filled the sky like a storm of metal. Dark warships, heavy cannons glowing with deadly fire. They had crushed every fleet before, and now they came to finish the Alliance. The Alliance fleet was broken, tired and afraid. Engines limped, weapons flickered. Crews whispered their last prayers. Every alien eye looked to the stars and saw only death. And in the middle of that fear stood the human. Quiet, steady, watching the horizon of fire. The Admiral gave the order to form battle lines. The officers shouted commands. Warriors roared to raise courage in their hearts. But none of that noise touched the human. He stood in the hangar beside the impossible machine. His hands rested on the controls, his voice soft. "Bring them closer," he whispered. The Admiral's silver eyes burned as he stared at the machine. "This is madness," one officer spat. "If it fails, we are dead before the battle begins." The Admiral did not answer. He remembered the quiet weight in the human's words. And though it made no sense, he placed his trust in silence. The enemy drew nearer, cannons charged. Beams of energy lit the dark. Then the first barrage came. 1,000 firebolts streaked across space. They fell upon the Alliance fleet like rain upon glass. Everyone braced for death. And then, the human pressed his hand to the control. The machine roared alive. The hangar shook. Lights flickered, and a wall of shifting light spread across the fleet. Not solid, not still, but moving, bending, rippling. The enemy fire struck the wall, but instead of shattering through, it curved, twisted, and bent away. The impossible had become real. Gasps filled the ships. The officers stared in shock. The Admiral's eyes widened. Weapons that had destroyed entire fleets now slid harmlessly aside. The enemy barrage wrapped around the fleet and vanished into space. Not blocked, not absorbed, but bent like rivers around stone. The enemy commander roared in disbelief. Fire again, fire everything. Another wave of destruction poured across the stars, but the human's machine bent it all. The wall rippled, shimmered, and sent the death away. The Alliance fleet stood untouched. For the first time in years, they were safe. Hope spread like fire. Warriors who had been silent shouted with joy. Officers who had mocked the human now trembled with awe. The Admiral whispered under his breath, "He has done it." His voice shook, but not with fear, with something far more dangerous. Faith, but the battle was not over. The enemy realized they could not simply burn through. They began to circle. They prepared to strike at weak points. They looked for cracks in the wall of bending light. The Admiral turned sharply. "Will it hold?" he asked. The human did not boast, he only whispered, "It will hold if I hold," and he worked. His hands flew across the controls, adjusting power, shifting angles, shaping the wall. Every shot the enemy fired forced him to move faster. Every ripple of energy made him sweat. He bore the weight of the entire fleet with his quiet hands. The enemy grew desperate. They unleashed their heaviest cannons, great beams of energy that had split planets apart. They hurled them at the human shield. The fleet shook, lights dimmed, alarms screamed. The officers panicked. "It cannot take more." "It will break," they cried. But the human did not panic. He leaned closer to the machine, his voice a whisper. "Bend." The wall shuddered. It rippled like water under a storm. And then, with a sound like thunder, the enemy's strongest fire curved aside. It bent into the void and vanished. The Alliance fleet stood again, alive, untouched. The impossible machine had passed the test. The Admiral could not believe what he saw. He turned to the human. "How did you—" he began, but he stopped. The human's face was pale, sweat dripping. His hands trembled slightly. The machine was strong, but it demanded everything. It was not just metal and light, it was his will, his mind, his strength. If he broke, it broke. The Admiral's chest tightened. For the first time he saw the truth. This human was not just a builder, he was the shield itself. The fleet lived only because he endured. The battle raged on, the enemy circled. Desperate, confused, the Alliance fleet began to fire back. Their weapons, though weak, now had cover for the first time. They struck blows instead of taking them. Aliens roared with courage. "Fight, fight!" "The human protects us," they cried. But the Admiral knew this was only the beginning. The enemy would not stop. They would bring more ships, more weapons. They would search for ways to tear the machine apart. And the human could not hold forever. Already his breath grew short. Already his eyes strained with the weight of holding the impossible. Still he did not stop. He whispered again and again, "Bend, bend, bend." And the wall bent, every flame, every spear, every storm of fire, until the enemy broke and pulled back for the moment. The Admiral walked to the human. He looked at the pale figure, hands still pressed to the living machine, and for the first time in his long life, he felt small before someone so quiet. "You are not loud, human," he whispered. "But you are stronger than any roar." The human did not answer. He only closed his eyes and kept building the shield with his will. Because the test was not over, the true fire was still to come. The battlefield was quiet after the storm. Enemy ships drifted back, holding their fire. The Alliance fleet floated in the center, untouched, and at the heart of it all, the human stood with his impossible machine, his face pale, his hands trembling, but his eyes steady in the enemy flagship. The commander of the Empire raged. He was a giant creature of bone and armor, his voice like thunder. "How can this be?" he roared. "No shield can bend my fire, no machine can resist my fleet." His officers lowered their heads. Afraid to speak, fear spread in their ranks. Not fear of the Alliance, but fear of one silent builder for years. The Empire had ruled by terror. Their weapons were unmatched, their victories endless. But now, for the first time, their power had failed. And it was not crushed by another empire. It was broken by a single human. The commander slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Find out what this human has built," he growled. His spies brought reports, broken and confused. "Admiral Kyle commands the fleet," they said. "But the shield does not belong to him. It belongs to the human." The one who builds. The commander's eyes burned with fury. One human dares to stand against me, he hissed. If fear spreads, my empire cracks. He leaned close to his captains, his voice a whisper like poison. Kill the builder. And the shield dies. Back on the Alliance flagship, whispers spread too. Warriors spoke with awe. Did you see it? The fire bent like water. Not even the great cannons could break it. For the first time, hope grew in their voices. They looked at the human not with mockery, but with respect, some even with fear. The human worked silently still, his hands adjusting the machine, his mind lost in creation. He ignored the stares, the whispers, the praise. He knew this was only the beginning. He knew the enemy would come harder. He knew they would not stop until they broke him. The Admiral approached. He stood beside the human, watching the rippling shield. You are changing everything, he said softly. The human shook his head. I am only building, he whispered. But the Admiral saw the truth. He was not only building. He was reshaping the war itself. The enemy commander launched his next attack. Not with weapons, but with fear. Small ships darted toward the fleet. Their goal was not to destroy, but to reach the human. Assassins slipped through the shadows of space. Seeking the silent builder, the Admiral saw it at once. They want you, he growled. He called his guards. Protect the human at all costs. Warriors moved to surround the hangar, but the human shook his head. If they come, let them, he whispered. His hands never left the machine. If I stop, the shield dies. If the shield dies, we all die. So I will not stop. And so he built even as death came for him. The assassins breached the hangar. Their blades gleamed, their eyes burned. They rushed at the human. But the shield itself seemed to sense his danger. It rippled, bent, and twisted. The assassins were thrown back, crushed by their own momentum. The human did not even look up. He whispered only one word. Bend. Fear spread through the enemy ranks. Reports returned to their commander. Not only ships, the spies said. The shield bends men, bends blades, bends everything. The commander's rage turned to something darker. Doubt. For the first time he asked himself, what if this human cannot be killed? The Alliance fleet struck back. Small victories sparked across the battlefield. Drones were built by the human's quick designs. Traps were laid in space that bent enemy fire back against them. Every creation turned the tide a little more. Every invention brought new fear to the enemy. The officers of the Empire whispered in secret, this builder, he is dangerous, not loud, not strong, but dangerous. The commander silenced them with claws of rage, but the fear was already growing, fear of the human who built the impossible. On the Alliance side, warriors spoke with pride. Our shield holds, our enemy fears us. But the Admiral was not blind. He saw the human growing weaker. Each use of the machine drained him. His hands shook more, his breath grew heavy. The Admiral leaned close. Can you endure? He asked. The human's reply was soft. I will endure as long as I must. That night, as the fleets pulled back to prepare for the next strike, the Admiral stood at the window. He looked at the stars. He thought of the war, the fear, the silence of the human, and he realized something powerful. The Empire was afraid now, not of the Alliance but of one quiet man, and fear once born only grows. The Admiral turned to the human, his voice a whisper. You are not only our builder, he said. You are our weapon. The human looked up, his face calm, his eyes steady. I am not a weapon, Admiral, he whispered. I am only a builder. But the Admiral knew. In the eyes of the enemy, that made him the most dangerous weapon of all. The battlefield no longer belonged only to the Empire. For the first time in years, the Alliance ships moved with strength. Their weapons fired not in desperation but in rhythm. They attacked behind the shield of the human. And every strike landed. Every shot that once missed now struck home. Because courage had returned. The enemy felt it too. Their ships wavered. Their captains hesitated. Fear spread through their ranks like poison. Why do our weapons fail? They asked, why does the fire bend? They whispered. And the answer always came back the same. The human, the builder. On the Alliance flagship, the Admiral stood tall. His silver eyes burned as he gave orders with new power. Advance, press them back. Show them fear, he shouted. His warriors roared, their voices filled with fire. But at the center of it all was silence. The silence of the human still bent over his machine. Hands trembling, sweat dripping, but never stopping. He had given the fleet more than defense. He had given them belief, and belief was more dangerous than any cannon. The human built again, not only the great shield but new things. Small drones shaped from scraps, swift machines that darted into enemy lines. They carried his designs, simple, strange, deadly. They bent light around them. They twisted gravity in small bursts. They moved like ghosts through the battlefield, striking and vanishing before the enemy could touch them. The Alliance officers gasped. "This is not technology we know," they whispered. "Where does it come from?" But the human gave no answer. He only built. His silence was his reply, and his creation spoke louder than words. The enemy commander grew furious. His claws scraped the metal of his throne. "Crush them," he roared. But even as he raged, he felt a cold edge of fear. Not fear of fleets, not fear of admirals, but fear of one man whose hands could change war itself. The battle turned. For the first time, the Empire was pushed back. Ships that once hunted now fled. The Alliance advanced step by step, each victory small but real. Each moment built on the quiet strength of the human. But victory carried danger. The Admiral knew it. The enemy was not beaten, they were wounded. And wounded beasts bite hardest. He felt it in his bones, he saw it in the stars. Something darker was coming. The human seemed to know as well. He worked faster, pushing himself beyond strength. His eyes were hollow with exhaustion, but his hands never stopped. Every new machine, every new drone, every new defense, all built with the quiet promise that he would endure. No matter the cost, the Admiral tried to speak. "You must rest," he urged. "You cannot carry this weight forever." The human shook his head. "I will rest when the galaxy is safe," he whispered. And the Admiral's chest tightened with something he had not felt in centuries. Respect. Then it came. The enemy commander unleashed his secret. From the darkness beyond the stars, a shadow appeared. It was not a fleet. It was not a ship. It was something greater. A warship so massive it blotted the stars, its hull black as night, its weapons glowing like suns. The Empire's pride, their hidden terror, the dreadnought. The Admiral's blood ran cold. He knew its legend, one ship equal to an army. Its cannons had cracked moons, its engines had swallowed fleets. It had never been defeated, and now it came for them. The Alliance officers panicked. "Nothing can stop it," they cried. "Our shield cannot hold." The warriors' voices wavered, even the bravest felt their hope shake. But the human did not move from his machine. He looked at the shadow in the stars, and for a long moment he said nothing. Then softly he whispered, "Bigger ships only mean bigger flaws." The Admiral stared at him. "You cannot mean to face it," he said. The human finally turned, his eyes calm, steady, unshaken. "That ship is not my enemy," he whispered. "Its design is my enemy. And design can be broken." The words sent a shiver through the Admiral. The human spoke not like a warrior, not like one who fought with fire, but like a builder who saw every weapon as a puzzle, and puzzles always had answers. The dreadnought loomed closer, its weapons charged. Its dark hull swallowed the light. The Empire's commander laughed across the comms. "Your shield will shatter, your fleet will burn, your builder will die." His voice shook the stars, but on the Alliance ship, silence was stronger. The human whispered, "Let him come." The Admiral's eyes burned as he gave the order, "All ships prepare. The true battle begins now." And as the dreadnought's shadow fell across them, every heart in the fleet turned to the human. Every soul whispered the same hope, that the quiet builder could bend even the greatest storm. The dreadnought moved like a mountain across the stars. Its shadow swallowed the battlefield. Its cannons glowed with suns of fire, and every heart in the Alliance fleet trembled. The enemy commander's voice thundered across the comms. "Your shield bends small fire, but this is no small fire. This is the end." Laughter rolled like thunder in his words. Cold, cruel, certain. The Admiral stood on the bridge of his ship. His silver hands clenched, his jaw tight. He had fought 1,000 battles, but never against a monster like this. Even he felt doubt pressing against his chest. Yet at the center of it all, the human stood silently. His hands on the impossible machine, his eyes fixed on the shadow. He whispered softly, "Size does not matter. Design always breaks." The Admiral turned sharply. "You cannot believe this. This ship has never been defeated." The human looked at him. Calm, steady. "I am not loud, Admiral, but I can build," he said. and the words carried more power than a shout. The dreadnought fired. A beam of energy larger than mountains streaked through the stars. It roared toward the fleet like the wrath of gods. The officers screamed, the warriors braced. The Admiral whispered a final prayer, but the human only said one word. Bend! The shield flared alive, it rippled, shimmered, and shook under the weight of the blast. The fleet trembled, alarms screamed. The wall of bending light shook as if it would break. But the fire curved, it twisted, it bent away into the void. The impossible had happened again. The dreadnought fired again and again. Each shot shook the human's body. His hands trembled, his breath grew shallow. Blood trickled from his nose, the machine demanded everything from him. His strength, his mind, his will. But he did not stop, he whispered again and again. Bend, the Admiral saw it, this was no shield alone. This was a bond between builder and machine, between mind and creation. And if the human broke, the shield would die. The Admiral's chest ached with respect and fear. He had never seen such strength in silence, but bending alone would not win. The dreadnought was too strong, too vast, the Admiral shouted. We must strike back. The officers hesitated. Our weapons are too weak, they cried. The human's voice cut through softly. Not weak, only misused. With trembling hands. He reshaped the drones, he bent their paths, twisted their energy. He turned every small weapon into a spear of precision, not to destroy the dreadnought, but to strike its hidden flaws, he whispered as he worked. Every design has a weakness, every puzzle has an answer. The drones flew, small, fast, almost invisible. They darted across the battlefield. The enemy laughed. Your toys cannot hurt me, the commander sneered. But the laughter stopped when the first drone pierced a crack. Not in the armor, but in the flow of energy itself. The dreadnought shook, its glow flickered. The human's eyes burned with quiet fire. He sent more drones. Each one struck like a scalpel. Not breaking the ship by force, but unraveling it piece by piece. The impossible machine bent the enemy's fire. The drones broke its heart from within. The enemy commander roared, Impossible, impossible! One human cannot break me. But already his ship trembled, already his power failed. Fear spread through his crew for the first time. The Empire's greatest weapon was bleeding. The Admiral watched in awe. The quiet human, pale and shaking, was bringing down the terror of the galaxy, not with roars, not with pride, but with silence, patience, and creation. The dreadnought fired one last time, a desperate scream of energy. The shield shook, cracked. The human staggered. For a moment it seemed he would fall. But then he pressed both hands to the machine. His voice rose, not loud, but steady. I am not loud, Admiral, he whispered. But I can build. The shield flared brighter than the stars. The final fire bent, twisted, and turned back. The dreadnought's own weapon curved into its core. A flash like the death of suns lit the void. The monster of the Empire tore apart from within. The shadow was gone. Silence filled the battlefield. The Alliance fleet floated untouched. The enemy ships scattered in terror. They fled, broken. Their fear greater than their loyalty. On the flagship, the Admiral turned slowly. He looked at the human, exhausted, trembling, barely standing, but still alive, still calm. The Admiral's voice was soft. That will do, he whispered. The human gave a faint nod, then finally allowed his body to rest. The machine dimmed, its light fading, but it had already written its truth into the galaxy. From that day on, stories spread, not of loud warriors, not of roaring commanders, but of the silent human who bent fire, the builder who broke an empire. And across the stars, enemies whispered in fear. Beware the quiet ones, for silence can build what thunder cannot.